Okay, so I thought this article was interesting because we're seeing the use. I'm using SPMs in my practice for many people that have lived in mold or occupied water damaged buildings. But there's no research on that topic yet. But anyway, you understand what I mean. Quenching the fires, pro-resolving mediators, air pollution, and smoking. So exposure to air pollution and other environmental inhalation hazards, such as occupational exposures to dust, fumes, acro allergens, and smoke, is a significant cause of chronic lung inflammation, leading to respiratory disease. It's now recognized that resolution of inflammation is an active process controlled by a novel family of small lipid mediators, again, termed specialized pro-resolving mediators, or SPMs, derived mainly from omega-3 polyunsaturated fats. Chronic inflammation results from an imbalance, and SPMs and related molecules have exciting therapeutic potential to reverse or prevent chronic lung inflammation with a focus on lung inflammation due to inhalation of environmental hazards, including urban particulate matter, organic dust, and smoke. We're using it now in people that have been exposed to mold. And because if you've ever been exposed to mold and you know what that's like, chronic mold exposure, you get mold toxins, you get VOCs, you get microbial debris that you're breathing in from your air in that water damaged building, and those things are very toxic to the lungs. And SPMs are not a cure for mold toxicity. Getting out of mold has got to be the first step involved in the process of trying to recover. But what we're finding is that by using SPMs, we're seeing people do much better and feel much better as a means of kind of controlling or regulating the inflammation better. The key takeaway is there, don't think you can just take SPMs and do bad things. That's not what they're designed to do. They're designed to stop chronic inflammation that's been going on for a long time, to reset the immune system, to reset the body so that it can bring in the right milieu to heal and repair that chronic damaged inflammation. I thought this was interesting on human breast milk. So human milk, pro-resolving mediators stimulate resolution of acute inflammation. So human milk contains nutrients and bioactive products relevant to infant development and immunological protection. Here we investigated pro-resolving properties of milk using human milk lipid mediator isolates and determined their impact on resolution programs in vivo and with human macrophages. So this is not in live humans, but this is using human cell lines to determine this. And so what they found was evidence that human milk has pro-resolving actions via comprehensive LMSPM profiling, describing a potentially novel mechanism in maternal-infant biochemical imprinting. In essence, the mothers give the babies SPMs through breast milk to help the baby's immune system. Breast milk, and this is one of those things where I know a lot of you, a lot of doctors over the years have said, use formula. And as a matter of fact, not so much anymore, but the past several decades, formula was really emphasized, and in some cases still is. Now, if you weren't able to breastfeed, if you weren't producing adequate milk, this is not me saying you're a bad mother or you're a bad person. This is just me simply calling out that formula is such an inadequate food. I would go so far as to say formula is processed junk food. And it's the way babies are introduced to junk food initially in early life a lot of times. In most formulas in the major brands, number one ingredient is corn syrup solids. Imagine feeding your baby corn syrup out of a bottle. You wouldn't do it, right? Read the label on your formula. You'll see that corn syrup solids, usually it's to sweeten the stuff. And then several other ingredients in breast milk are corn-derived or corn-related sugars as well. And then the rest of it is basically it's highly processed proteins. A lot of times it's soy. In some of these formulas, soy protein, or it's dairy. Why? Soy and dairy proteins, if we look at the top 8 allergens in the United States, soy and dairy are on the list. as top 8 allergens. Why would we put some of the top 8 allergens in breast milk or in formulas for babies? This stuff is garbage. Anyway, if you're in this predicament where you're not producing breast milk, there are better brands of formulas. I just want to make you aware of that. I don't want you to make you feel like a horrible person if you've breastfed, but I want you to be aware that if you're using those standard formulas, there are much better brands where you can get A2 formula. You can actually make your own, and it would be much healthier. But none of these formulas, I can promise you, none of them contain SPMs. Now, some of them might contain, or they didn't used to. As a matter of fact, not having adequate omega-3 in formulas was a major cause of retardation initially. But these growing babies need omega-3, especially DHA. DHA is, for all intents and purposes, is brain fat. So anyway, enough about formula. Hopefully you learned something. If you know somebody getting ready to have a baby, you can share that with them. Okay, let's talk about some of the research in humans on using SPMs for pain. So in this one, you can see early evidence of efficacy for orally administered SPM-enriched marine lipid fraction on quality of life and pain. And this is in adults. And so you see resolvin precursors may improve the quality of life, reduce pain intensity and interference, and improve mood within 4 weeks of supplementation. That was a human trial. And then we have this double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trial that was recently published in 2023. You see specialized pro-resolving mediators, including 18 HEAP and 17 HDHA and 14 HDHA, are recognized as potentially therapeutic in inflammatory diseases because SPMs regulate the inflammation process. This is what we've been talking about. And the results of this study, patients were enrolled from May 2018 to September 2021. They used VAS pain score. This is visual analog scales for pain score, was evaluated in the protocol population, in which we observed a statistically significant reduction after 8 weeks and after 12 weeks. P-value of 0.039 and 0.031. What is a p-value? Those of you that aren't researchers, anytime a p-value is 0.5 or less, basically what that means is it's extremely accurate. The research study is extremely validated. These p-values is, again, less than 0.5. These are 0.039 and 0.031. So extremely valid in that regard. The only problem with this study was the quantity of people. You can see there were only 51 total people enrolled in the study, 23 in the group that received supplementation and 28 in the group that received a placebo. We need more data. We need bigger studies, but this study was very good in the sense that you see these findings suggest sustained SPMs consumption reduces pain in osteoarthritis patients while improving the quality of life. These results also support the safety profile of SPM supplementation, meaning they're safe at the doses, and generally we'll talk about dosing in a minute, but SPMs are a very safe product, and you don't have to take as high of a dose of an SPM as you do of a fish oil. Like, to get pain relief with using fish oil, omega-3, concentrated EPA, DHA, you got to be upwards of 3 to 8 grams a day. So if you're taking fish oil capsules, and they're the 1 gram capsules with concentrated EPA or DHA, you got to take 3 to 8 of those. Big old capsules, 1 gram. With SPMs, you're looking at 150 to 450 milligrams per day, and so this is equated to anywhere between 1 and 3 tiny little 500 milligram capsules. That's usually the way these things are structured in their little gel caps. So they're tiny little things, easy to swallow. So if you're taking SPM, you just have to take less of that to get the same kind of pain reduction effect. So 3 to 8 grams, which are 3 to 8 gram capsules versus 1 to 3 small 500 milligram capsules to get the resolution or to get the relief. I thought this was valuable for you as well. So what these researchers did is they were evaluating different patients with different types of arthritis. They were actually looking at their SPM levels, measuring whether or not they had adequate SPMs. And so you can see in this study, these are human studies, so on rheumatoid arthritis, patients with active RA have lower levels of MAR1 than healthy controls or patients with inactive arthritis. So they compared RA patients with non-RA patients and found that in RA patients, their SPM levels were lower. Another study here, RA patients have lower levels of RVD1, which is another type of SPM, compared to healthy controls. And you can see down here, RA patients have disruption in SPM levels. They have lower levels of several types. You can see all these different types, several different types of SPMs. And then osteoarthritis patients have lower levels as well, compared to RA patients. And then osteoarthritis patients have lower levels overall. And so is it, what we don't know, we don't have the answer to this yet, but do they have lower levels and that's why they hurt? Or because they have inflammation chronically, they're burning through their SPMs and so they don't, their body can't produce them adequately to keep up with the inflammatory demand? We don't know the answer to that question yet. But what we do know in preliminary clinical trials that humans taking SPMs feel better, have less pain, improve quality of life, and do better generally as a whole. And I've seen that be the case, for the past decade or so since SPMs have become available to use and practice. Okay, let's talk about some of the side effects possibly of SPMs. So relatively safe, research shows that they're relatively safe. But there are a couple of things just to be aware of, want to be aware of. One would be gastrointestinal distress. And so this would be kind of more of a minor type of an issue, but bloating, diarrhea, reflux. And this is predominantly from fish oils. When you take it in the larger quantities or in the higher doses, this for some people with more finicky stomachs can experience this type of symptom. So just be aware. If that's you, then reduce your dose. Allergic reactions. Many people are allergic to different types of fish or marine products. So SPMs are typically derived from fish. So if you've got a fish allergy specifically, you might want to read your label carefully and make sure that your SPM is not derived from something that you're allergic to. But it's possible to have an allergic reaction if you have an allergy to the fish that it's derived from. So as far as dosing is concerned, I think I mentioned a minute ago, therapeutically, so maintenance dose would be 150 milligrams a day. But if you're really trying to get therapeutic amounts where maybe you want to try these and see if it helps you with your pain or with your discomfort or inflammation, I would encourage starting at 300 milligrams a day and going as high. We've sometimes put people on 600 milligrams per day. And when I say 600 milligrams a day, that's 600 milligrams of standardized SPM. So the way that these capsules are generally produced is that an SPM capsule is a 500 milligram capsule. So it's a 500 milligrams. It's not a big capsule. Usually they're little tiny pearls. But of this 500 milligrams, 150 of it is SPM. So generally speaking, you get 150 active SPMs per 500 milligram capsule. So when we're saying take 150, that would be one capsule. We're saying take 300, that would be two capsules. And then if we're taking 600, that would be 4 capsules. So just to give you an idea of how to look at those different labels, because most SPMs are bottled in that way or contain their dosing structure in that way where they're standardized to that amount, that 150 total milligrams per capsule. So that's the quantity you can start with. Again, this is maintenance, more therapeutic, and then even more therapeutic if you want to go higher. It's pretty safe to do. The biggest symptom is GI distress, and that's super, super rare. It's very rare that I see that occurring for anyone. But we've been using now SPMs for probably close to a decade. I wrote about it in No Grain, No Pain originally, And when I did PBS, we did a national show on PBS in 2016. We talked in depth about SPMs and their role in inflammation. So a lot of experience over the years with these products, and they tend to work quite well, and would encourage any of you struggling that are looking just for a natural alternative to ask your doctor about them and potentially think about using them as part of your care, because they're a lot safer than in non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and in my experience they can be oftentimes just as effective for the reduction of pain and inflammation. So there you have it, SPM 101. I hope this crash course was helpful for you. Hey, don't forget to check out my crash course library. If you haven't already, I'll put a link down to that library below, and you can watch more of my long-form courses on vitamins, minerals, and nutritional topics to get yourself up to speed and up to date on things that could be life-changing for you and your health. Thanks for visiting Dr. Osborne's Zone. We'll see you Thursday at 12:30 Central Standard Time for live Q&A, and we'll be back again next Tuesday for another show. Take care.